Tonight, News Channel 5 Investigative special report reveals the Christian nationalists who want to turn a small Middle Tennessee community into their base of operations, hoping to attract others from around the country. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rory Johnston.
And I'm Hunter Hoagland. They are a group who says they want to go back to an America before the Civil Rights Movement. Their desire is to deport legal immigrants even if they became U.S. citizens decades ago.
And they want to put women back to where they think they belong. Our chief investigative reporter, Phil Williams, has been investigating this effort for 3 months. And Phil, you found that longtime residents didn't even know this was happening.
That is precisely the case. This has very much been developing under the radar. In many ways, the views of some of these people are not so different from the white supremacists we've seen marching down Nashville streets in the past year, although they dress up their ideas with intellectual buzzwords and call it Christian. And they hope that about 90 minutes northeast of Nashville, tiny Jackson County will welcome their controversial ideas of what it means to be an American. For the Christian nationalists setting their sights on Jackson County, Tennessee, picturesque scenes like this represent what they call Heritage America. It's a notion reflected in the Norman Rockwell images they post on social media of hardworking white people, especially white men.
We're building a town. We're building a community there.
Leading the way are podcasters Andrew Isker, a right-wing pastor from Minnesota, and CJay Engel, who recently moved to the area from Northern California.
Like all of our heroes were way more racist than we're allowed to be today.
Together, the pair host what they bill as the #1 Christian nationalist podcast in the world.
God made men to rule, period. That's the world God made. You don't like it? Take it up with him.
And here in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, Isker and Engel hope to make a new home in a place where most everybody looks like them and thinks like them.
So the question is there room for like-minded Christians and patriots in Tennessee? Yes, there's an imperative for like-minded Christians to gather and fight with us. Like, we need Christian nationalism in one state. Like, that's what we need.
After first announcing a project here along the Cumberland River in southern Kentucky near the small town of Burkesville, the developers behind the plan recently announced their move into Jackson County. Here along the line with Macon County, one of the developers has bought up 500 acres in these rolling Tennessee hills. It's not clear exactly what he intends to do with all this land. But just a few minutes down that same road, just across from the Jackson County High School, a separate business entity has purchased another 100 acres that they are apparently planning to develop. And they've announced that Gainesboro, the Jackson County seat, will be the focus of their efforts to resettle like-minded people from around the country.
From what I can tell, they're Christian nationalists, and I wouldn't hesitate to say white Christian nationalists.
Pastor Kevin Riggs has been sounding the alarm about the rise of Christian nationalism in Middle Tennessee for years, including Gabrielle Hanson's unsuccessful campaign for mayor last year in affluent Franklin, Tennessee. You said it borders on Christian Sharia law.
A Christianized type of Sharia law where everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, it doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist, it doesn't matter what, you're going to be forced to live by this narrow interpretation of Christian principles.
Having Christian nations on American soil, yep, that's ours too. We'll take it, right? That, like, restoring American identity, right? American, like, heritage American identity, that's good.
As Isker and Engel see it, the only people who have a legitimate right to a homeland here in the U.S. are those so-called heritage Americans, like the ones depicted in those Norman Rockwell images from the past.
I would imagine in most of those Norman Rockwell pictures, there aren't any depictions of people who look like me.
We showed Nashville pastor Chris Williamson some of Isker and Engel's own words, in which Engel says his concept of heritage America affirms the domination and preeminence of European-derived peoples, their institutions, and their way of life, although he adds that his term also includes the blacks of the Old South. According to them, if you are a descendant of slaves, you get to stay.
So they're defining my legacy, my entire legacy, really on slavery. I get to stay, even though I was brought here against my will and treated horribly through chattel slavery for nearly 250 years, but that's my heritage.
Even then, Engel writes that his acceptance of black Americans is on the condition that they don't try to leverage their experience for the purposes of political guilt.
Because really, you want to keep me in that place of inferior status with you. I'm okay as long as I stay in line and accept how you define me. But these days of white men defining black people, they're not happening anymore.
I'm not going to debate the meaning of America with those that seek its destruction.
The two Christian nationalists denounced the efforts of civil rights leader Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement in general, with Engel saying you cannot have both MLK and Heritage America, and Isker declaring we should turn civil rights back to the states. They celebrate images of whites-only diners in the 50s, with Engel proclaiming the 1960s ruined everything, and they mock historical incidents like the kidnapping and lynching of 14-year-old Emmett Till, yet they dismiss any criticism as people taking them too seriously.
So too are Isker's objections to the Civil Rights Act, his dismissiveness of the Emmett Till murder, and the broader racial views. Yeah. Well, that's funny. That's funny because that whole controversy was like entirely a meme controversy.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, come on, man. Like, anyway.
Yeah. You get in trouble for having fun.
You have done nothing but disguise white supremacy in the guise of Christian nationalism. So call it what it is. It's white supremacy. It's nothing Christian about it.
Earlier this year, Engel, to mark the beginning of Black History Month, responded with his own celebration of Heritage History Month, holding up white supremacist thinker Sam Francis for praise. Among his writings, Francis suggested that if whites wanted to do so, they could dictate a solution to the racial problem tomorrow by imposing fertility controls on non-whites.
It's repulsive that people would think of me and people who look like me in such degrading ways.
And yet they claim to be Christian nationalists.
Keyword is claim.
Part of this is coming out of fear because we're moving closer and closer to that day where the white European Christian is the minority or the new minority when you add up all the other minorities. So they're losing power, and they're trying to stop that as well.
In fact, their rhetoric,
They do hate us. They hate white Christian men, period. End of story.
is reminiscent of this scene, where neo-Nazis took to the streets of Nashville earlier this year.
If you strip it all down, they're saying the same thing. They're just saying it in a way that may be more acceptable to people. But at the end of the day, it's the same tired ideology of white supremacy.
As Isker and Engel see it, this endeavor isn't just about moving to a place where the people look and think like them. They also imagine creating a political force that has an impact on communities like Gainsborough, eventually extending their reach statewide.
If you have towns like ours that we're going to be building, right, where there are a lot of people that are very politically motivated and very well organized, right, you can have as much influence as one of the big cities in Tennessee. Hello and welcome to Contra Modem. It is election night. It's the big night. Welcome, everyone.
And on election night, the pair hosted a nearly 9-hour podcast from Gainsborough.
Oh, there he is.
So he's on.
He's on. He's live.
There I am. Hey.
Bringing in some of the biggest names from the Christian nationalist community.
This is Charles's moment. Charles, welcome to the 2024 election.
With one suggesting that Donald Trump's strong showing,
I mean, if he does that, then, Red Caesar, mandate from heaven, rock and roll, let's go.
might clear the way for the authoritarian Red Caesar they hope will rise.
So I don't want to be a gloom and doom type person. My hope is still in Christ. But what I see on a practical level scares me if this kind of thing just keeps growing and takes root in our country.
As for what these Christian nationalists hope to plant here amid the beauty of rural Middle Tennessee, these pastors say what they see is not American, nor is it Christian.
So when I hear people talk about Jesus and their Jesus does not invite people to the table of grace, when their Jesus excludes people, they're not preaching the gospel. That's something else. I don't recognize that. And I don't want that kind of Jesus leading our nation.
And that's not all. Among their other controversial views, they say they, quote, hate democracy, they're rooting for a Protestant dictator, and they think God made men to rule over women, that men are supposed to teach their women what to think, that it was a mistake to let women vote, and among the worst influences on America today, in their words, are college-educated white women.
Wow. I know you tried to get the two of them to sit down with you, get their side on camera, but it appears they weren't interested.
No, not at all. Both of them responded with defiant statements, essentially saying that Donald Trump's election shows that the media doesn't matter anymore. CJay Engel says his views are motivated by his understanding of American history and what he calls his love of country. We've got their full statements at NewsChannel 5. Let people.
A newly discovered video provides more insight into what out-of-state Christian nationalists hope to accomplish as they move into a town right here in Middle Tennessee. Good evening to you. I'm Carrie Sharp.
And I'm Rory Johnston. An exclusive NewsChannel 5 investigation this week first revealed the plan by these controversial figures who oppose the civil rights movement, want to kick out immigrants who've already become U.S. citizens, and think women shouldn't go to college or vote. They're buying up land and moving into rural Jackson County, about 90 minutes northeast of Nashville.
Our chief investigative reporter, Phil Williams, continues to follow this important story. And Phil, this is on top of the video that you've already uncovered.
That's right. This video is more explicit about their intentions. The video was posted online by one of the developers who's buying up land in Jackson County. And in it, one of the Christian nationalists talks about their plan to gain influence at the ballot box.
We're not just fleeing, right, as refugees to somewhere else that might be better. We are going to somewhere where we can do the thing we wanted to do here, quite frankly.
The video was posted on X by a company known as Ridge Runner, one of the developers linked to the purchase of 600 acres in the area. The developers hope to attract buyers from across the country to establish a foothold here in Jackson County and the county seat of Gainsborough. And they have purchased this small office building in the heart of town as their base of operations.
I got connected to Ridge Runner and New Founding, to the guys there, and they're building a town there, and I wanted to be part of it.
Andrew Isker is a right-wing pastor from Minnesota who is moving to Jackson County along with fellow Christian nationalist podcaster CJay Engel. And in the video, Isker makes it clear that part of his plan is political power.
If you were able to take even a few hundred people that all think the same way and have all the same ideas about the common good and politics and so forth, and you could consolidate them in the same place, right? You can exercise far more political power, even with a few hundred or a few thousand people, than you can on your own, widely dispersed across the entire country.
It scares me that they are very clear about taking over.
For local residents we met this week in Gainsborough, NewsChannel 5's revelation of the Christian nationalist plan came as a shock, especially the revelations of some of the more extreme beliefs they hope to bring to the place these people call home. For one, it was reminiscent of the mysterious characters who came to town in a Stephen King horror story.
I think they kind of came in under the radar and want to recreate it in their own image. And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Barlow and Mr. Straker can load up the coffin and get out of Salem's Lot.
Now, as you saw there, I spent a few hours in Gainsborough this week listening to the people in the community and in some cases answering their questions. My visit actually turned into a bit of an impromptu town hall. It's an important story that we'll show you Monday on NewsChannel 5.
We really care what the Bible says. We want to prove all things. You can call in and ask a question on Truth with Proof.
Truth with Proof, with your host, Travis Thomas. You can call in with a spiritual question and get a Bible answer. We want to prove all things. 1 Thessalonians 5:21.
All right, friends, welcome to Truth with Proof. Tonight I have a special guest. Many of y'all local people already know kind of what's going on, and we did an introduction video to all my viewers who don't live local, CJay. So I have CJay Engel
right.
with me tonight. And we're going to be discussing some things that were brought up local. I invited him onto my broadcast. I want to just do a quick introduction to a little bit about my broadcast. It is a live Bible study program. It's Truth with Proof. As you can see, John 17:17, sanctify them through the truth. Thy word is truth. And we want to prove all things. Most of the time in my program, CJay, I invite denominational preachers, atheists, whoever lives local that wants to open up the good book and have a civil discussion, like a format, a civil debate, as you could call it, a discussion. And tonight's a little bit different because we're going to I'm going to do more like an interview because, well, I had brought up right here, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought to love one another. I personally don't know you. I mean, we just met tonight, but I know a lot of things are going on about you, local, and even probably national.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I have the format. I actually, CJay, I'm not lying, I picked my daughter up from school and I said, honey, I don't really know why I'm doing this tonight because this is very stressful.
Yes. Yeah.
And she said, well, Dad, why are you doing it? And I said, well, I'm doing it because some things that were brought up about Christian nationalists and anything to do with Christianity. As a gospel preacher, I want to defend that. Jude 3, I am set for the defense of the gospel, as Paul would say. And also right here, love. You have a soul, you have, as we're going to get to know you a little bit better, you have a family, you have children. And so we're going to give you the opportunity to address things that were said about you and the whole purpose of this. And as Christians, we ought to love one another. I think that's what the Bible teaches, and that's what God would want. But normally, before we just get right to it, my normal program would kind of be like I would invite denominational people on, and they would say such things like, CJay, we're saved by faith alone. And I would present the scriptures, or when people call in about the Bible, like right here, people can see it for themselves. We have lost people. They say, what shall we do? Repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins. So this is how you receive the forgiveness of sins in the New Testament. That would be my normal broadcast. But tonight it's more going to be an interview. I'm not going to pressure you with biblical doctrinal issues unless it's about maybe some of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight, CJay. And we kind of talked a little bit about that. So for callers, we're going to open the phone lines. CJay's agreed. Conviction he has. He's agreed for Jackson County people, surrounding people, to call in and ask questions. But Ephesians 4:29, tells us, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. In other words, I believe cussing. I'm against cussing. I don't want people calling in, cussing, and being rude in that fashion. You have to practice self-control. Matthew 12:36. But every idle word that shall speak, this is referring to you and I, will give an account, and our viewers as well, CJay. So we want to set forth that because also, I know you hadn't had a word yet, but also a lot of teenagers are watching. My son goes to school here. He says they're talking about it at school. And I said, how does it sound when we all the time saying, treat everybody fair, love, be kind to everybody, don't bully, and then we are in a area where some people have the mindset of let's run them out of town. Well, what happens when your children go to school and they don't agree with someone? Do they just say, let's run them out of school? It's not the example set forth. I just don't see Jesus and the apostles having this mindset. Personally, I look at it as an opportunity to build a relationship and in areas where we disagree, to try to teach what the Bible says. That's my mindset behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the power of the gospel. So Christian nationalists, I got this picture, CJ, offline. This is kind of the first thing that came up about Christian nationalists. Now, can you tell me a little bit what you know about Christian, or just go ahead before we start, introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm CJay Engel, and as everybody watching this knows, I'm from Northern California, and my wife and 4 children came with me about 6 months ago to the area. And like so many other people in the country, like we are thinking about the future. How do we raise our kids in a good area? What do we need to do to protect ourselves? The world is changing. The country is changing. The culture is always adrift. And, I have friends that I've met over the years, and we all decided, where's a good place that we can raise our families?
Okay, so I want the viewers to think.
Okay.
CJ is coming in mind that he's moved here because it's a good area. So that's a bonus. That's the way you're viewing people from Jackson County. It's
Correct.
a good area.
Yes, I'd say so.
Not in a negative sense.
Of course.
Okay, because if it's negative, you wouldn't have moved here.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so continue. I just wanted people to see.
Yeah, I mean that's
from the start.
That's the gist of it. And so we all live in different areas, and a couple of us are coming from blue states. A couple of us are coming from like Texas, and I'm from California, and my friend who you saw online is coming from Minnesota, and so we're all coming to a place, and we're saying, look, what can we do to provide for our children, to think about the future, and to live amongst people that are more similar to us in a heated political environment in the blue states that we're leaving. And not all of us are, from blue states. And right now there's only 3 or 4 families, coming in. But we do want to think long term, and we do want to think, where is the world going, and what can we do to live good quality lives as Christians and as good Americans? And that's sort of the what drives, the things that we're doing. There's a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of people like saying things, and we'll get to the details on those things, of course. But yeah, my overall, who I am as a person, I grew up in a very small mountain town, about 1,000 people. My dad was a pastor. I grew up as the oldest of 6 children from a homeschooled family. So a very simple, American life, childhood. Right. And the world in the last 20 years has gone crazy. And so there's so many people around America in different places just figuring out, what do I need to do now to hold down the fort and prepare for an uncertain world? And so I think in that way, I'm actually not unique. I think that there are many, many people across this country that are asking the same questions, and we're leaning into that. And my friend calls it the big sort, where conservatives want to live next to conservatives, and they're frustrated with the chaos in certain areas. Others are frustrated with living next to conservatives, and so they want to, go to more like-minded people. And there is this sort of like natural shift going on where people are moving to different areas. And I like that phrase, the big sort. And I think I see us as participating in that overall zeitgeist, if you will.
I mean, who wouldn't want to move or live in an area where you have very similar principles?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, like one of the things that I care about is social tranquility. I grew up in a very small town. It was a very peaceable town. And I think a lot of us actually listening to this love that old American small town feel. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us feel like that's kind of missing from our life. We live in this very globalist mindset. Everything's accessible via technology. We're basically trained to be citizens of the world. And a lot of us are wondering, where was the America that I grew up with? Where was the America that my father and my grandfather grew up with? And so that's the sort of good memory America that we want to lean into and see if we can foster a bit together as like-minded individuals and families.
Right. And so, and then here's this term, of course, if most people tuned in before, or they may have already, surely they already know, News Channel 5, the little video that they did about you. Well, they brought up Christian nationalism. To be honest, CJ, I was like, what is that? So I Googled this term, as everyone can read. This would be the definition. I guess you would get off the internet, because, most of the time my show is truth with proof. You're not going to find Christian nationalism in the Word of God. So, I try to always steer away from this outside stuff. I don't discuss and get into all of this outside information. I try to stick with truth with proof. But when I was reading this definition, since we're talking about it tonight, it does have the sense right here. It says that focuses on promoting the Christian views of its followers. Well, when I seen that, and we look here at Matthew 28:19 through 20, in some degree, everyone that says they believe the Bible should be some degree of promoting Christian values, you know. And that's what we're going to get into what News Channel 5 said about you guys. But it also says in order to achieve prominence or dominance in political and social life. Well, the thing I have with that, CJ, is most of the time when Christians or people who hold to Christian values get into politics, they usually veer. We see the Roman Empire did that, and I'm not saying that a Christian can't get into politics, but politics in today's time is like you speak one thing out of one mouth, and then you go tell another group something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as Christians, you want to speak as the oracles of God. And the way Christianity is, it's not like the old covenant. I just don't feel like it's set up to where you had the law of Moses was a whole society.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this a little bit. So, like, in our time, I think there's this great battle going on in politics, and I think Trump kind of is a symbol of that dynamic, where there's this globalist ethos, there's internationalism, and they want America to basically be nothing more than just a shopping mall, an economic zone that anyone can belong to. America is the world, and we should always have this globalist mindset. And I think in response to that, a lot of Americans are saying, okay, but what about the country that I grew up in?
Yeah.
What about the country that my ancestors settled?
Yeah.
And what about the things that we inherited? All of our institutions and memories and heroes and folklore. Those are all the things that matter to me. And so there's this dynamic at play between nationalism or America as the priority of our political endeavors versus internationalism. Is it our job as a country to save the world? Are we responsible for the bills, for the crises, for the social upheavals in the Middle East, in Asia, in Africa? Is that the job of Americans to take care of? And I think that the globalist instinct is to say yes. And I think that the nationalistic instinct is to say, well, no, we have our own problems here. There's a lot of Americans that are going through a lot of difficult times. There's drug problems, there's debt problems, there's moral problems. And Americans need to start thinking about their own country first. That's the basic instinct that leads to something like nationalism. It's a counter to internationalism.
Well, some as a preacher, I've tried to focus. Usually, if you can get the family right, everything else falls into place.
It starts at home. I agree.
And that's why a lot of it, like some of the things you're saying, on Truth with Proof, I wouldn't really bring a lot into it because there's opinions. Everybody has the opinions of this and that, but if we can go back to the Bible and practice biblical things, I think in the end will work out.
Well, let's talk about the Christian part then.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like there's the basic nationalist part of it. We're anti-globalist, but what is the Christian part of it? Well, look, I think every society has some sort of basic religious commitment. And in a world where we've abandoned our own history, we've abandoned the Bible as a bedrock foundational cornerstone of our society, we have lost a lot of the moral grounding for who we are as a people.
Right.
And I think as Christians, we can look back at American history and appreciate the fact that a lot of our institution, a lot of our habits and customs and norms were built on a Christian ethos. It's actually funny. My wife was in Cookeville this week, and she was at the courthouse, and there was a nativity scene there, right in front of the courthouse, right there on public property. There's a nativity scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's Christian nationalism. That's a public square declaring that this is a good symbol. This reminds anybody who travels in the Cookeville area, the Tennessee area.
In some areas, they're taking all that stuff away, right?
Well, exactly. And this is that leads to like, why did I leave California? But she texted me and she said, I haven't seen something like this in a long time. How is it possible that we have gotten so far from our, American Christian roots that something like this is shocking to my family? It's a blessing to live in a society where the basic symbols of Christianity are there before our eyes. And that's a lot of that symbolizes what it means to be a Christian nationalist.
Well, we wouldn't see that. We would take that for granted around here.
We would take that for granted.
And
Okay,
so,
but that's the point.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
our heritage.
yeah. Right.
It's so ingrained within us that we do take it for granted.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christianity has had a key part to play in the making of our national myths. And so that's just part of the equation as well.
Well, here's a lot of things too that my brothers and sisters pray for every Sunday. We pray right here. It says, first of all, that I exhort that petitions and prayers requested in thanksgiving be made for all men, for kings. Well, we don't have a king, but we have presidents and governors and stuff. And so when we all the time pray that our leaders make choices on biblical principles. So when you look at this right here, in some ways, we hold to this degree. CJay, I debated a Calvinist. He came to my studio. For a while, we didn't talk afterwards, but now we're friends. We both served in the military. We were both in the infantry, and we were talking today about you coming here. And he says, "Look, I'm against abortion." That's what Tim was saying. He's against abortion, so people would label him as a Christian nationalist. That's what
that's the label. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the labeling.
And so,
and by the way, let me just say too, like I'm not gonna, I have friends that call themselves that. I've actually never called myself that.
yeah, I wouldn't. I don't.
Yeah.
Like we talked about before we went live, is like Channel 5 matched the Nazis with Christian nationalists.
We need to talk about that too.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you want to do it now or later, but like we can wait on that.
We'll
if you
wait.
want.
We'll
Okay.
wait. I think it's in our slide.
Okay.
So we reviewed the video before we started, and we got to some points. We're going to open the phone line up here in a minute. We want to some of the things that was mentioned is you want to include your base of operations. What do you think? What is that like?
Well, I mean, that was their framing.
Yeah, but what are they right or wrong? What is that? Is that you're just saying?
Well, I have.
What would that include?
Well, so Ridge Runner's the company that's interested in buying land and selling it to people who want to have small farms and all of that kind of stuff. So they have offices in Gainesboro. So I guess you could call that their base of operations.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have my family here. I don't have any broader agenda except for to be with like-minded
So is it
people.
just a real estate office?
Yeah, they have an office. Yeah,
because NewsChannel 5 said that's going to be the real estate office.
That's the real estate office. That's
Okay.
fair, yeah.
But they said the base of operation.
Well, because they're trying to make it scary. So yeah.
Okay.
They have an office.
And so there is local people scared. I know one individual who said something along the lines of I am not going to repeat it, but I said, look, this guy talking about you has got to get home to put his kids to bed. I don't think he's a danger to our society.
Well, let me just. So I don't blame anybody for being scared. That was a scary newsreel.
Yeah, I guess so.
And look, I was in.
People probably think I'm just crazy for inviting you over after.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I do appreciate that. You stuck your neck out for this conversation for sure. But I don't blame anybody for being scared. I don't blame anybody for being cynical. Look at my fruits, I guess, over the next year would be a good way to start. Like, don't just trust me right now. It's my word against Phil Williams' words about what the plan is and all of that. So I don't blame people's cynicism. I don't blame the fact that they were scared. I don't blame the fact that there's a lot of chaos and tension. I don't blame that on the town. We can talk about the extent to which the media is doing what the media loves to do. They've done this with Donald Trump. I mean, earlier in the year, they said that he was Hitler incarnate, and they said that he was leading a Nazi movement to take over the federal government. And then a few months later, there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. So yeah, the media loves to poke these types of fires. They love to start things like this. So I don't blame the people for being scared. You can look at me, you see my family, my kids play on the street.
You can't believe everything you hear on the media, can you?
You can't blame. I mean, Thomas Jefferson talking about. I always read Thomas Jefferson on this media stuff. In fact, he says if you read the newspaper, you're very malinformed. So I think that American people have realized that. I think that's why Trump's in office. They spent years saying that he was leading a Nazi revival, and yet they called 75 million Trump supporters. They called all of them Nazis as well. So I think the media is very desperate, and the people don't trust them anymore. So I have good faith in the people of Jackson County to look beyond this. Watch my family. My family frequents towns. They shop in the same stores and go to the same restaurants. And a lot of people watching this have probably seen them.
Yeah.
We are very much a normal family that's trying to fit in. And I would encourage people to go up and say hi to them. They're very friendly children, and my wife is very friendly. And we can talk a little bit about Phil's role in dragging my family and my children through the Nazi ring. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a big problem with that. Like, that's a very serious allegation that my children are labeled the children of Nazis.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that later, and but we'll get to that kind of thing too. But yeah, I'm a normal human being, normal American. I'm just a simple dad. You know, that's the thing.
Well, I served in the military. You know, I become friends with someone from Nevada, and he's quite different the way I was raised. But I would be like, I would say things like, "Man, that guy's not normal," and he'd be like, "Really? What? Who defines normal?" So I guess I know what you're saying in normal, basic principles, but we're all different in some ways.
Sure.
But there was a statement that you made, and most people would say in my town that everybody's normal for my family but me, and I'm fine with that.
Okay.
You know, what kind of normal person challenges, like Phil, for example, if he wanted to come and talk about the Bible, I don't want to talk about politics with Phil. But if he wants to talk about salvation and how we worship, you know, I would invite News Channel 5 here, like you said, right here. But that's a side point. That's my love for Phil as well. But what was the statement here? You want to go back before the civil rights movement? If I was a black individual and I heard this, how do you think I would feel how they were treated before then? So could you elaborate? What did you mean when News Channel 5 said you wanted to go back before the civil rights movement?
Yeah, there's a strong conservative tradition in America of federalism and decentralized government, and there's this mentality that the federal government is not there to solve all of our problems. And so what happened, what a lot of conservatives have been pointing out since the 60s and 70s, and a lot of them have been pushed by the wayside, is that what happened in the Civil Rights Act was that a whole new bureaucratic administrative state was kind of built up. And this administrative state, the purpose of it was to suck out billions of dollars from America and create this sort of nanny state where every single transaction, every business, every department, even every state and locality was basically under the guise of this all-powerful federal government. And when I talk about what happened in the 60s...
You're not talking about racism at all in that statement then, right?
No, exactly. And I think one of the best ways to resolve these like racial tensions is actually sourced in the gospel, right? It's actually sourced in the fact that we are all made in the image of God, and that these things need to come out of the the soul of man at the local level. We don't need more bureaucracy and administration in our lives. I think the government has gotten way too big. And I think the 1960s, and see, this is the clever thing. If there's a government that wants to create mass bureaucracies, they're going to use things like the way that blacks were treated in order to build up their power. And so then when you critique the administrative state, it sounds like you hate blacks. You want to go back to Jim Crow and all of those things, right? And I think there are better ways at the local level to resolve those issues at the state level. Those are state level things. I'm a constitutionalist. The 10th Amendment says that these are areas that have not been delegated to the federal government. And so states should double down, protect their people within their state.
So just smaller government.
Well, yeah, it's the old constitutionalist federal model.
So to get everyone to see right here, Adam and Eve, you believe Adam and Eve were the first man and woman.
I do.
We all came from Adam and Eve. There's really only one human race. So you love black people, white people, Asian people, any kind of, I guess, individuals, right?
Yeah, I think that all people have been created in the image of God, and all of them are loved by God, and Christ was sent for the peoples of the nations of the world. Absolutely.
So I can speak from, I would say, there's racist people everywhere.
Sure.
Let's just be honest.
Sure.
But I would say, nearly everyone, at least I know in Jackson County, doesn't care, what color of race you are. When I served in the military, I served in with all kinds of different people. Asian people, black people. There's some of them were my best friends. My children go to school with different individuals. There's some that play sports. When we look at it, and you and I would agree with this, they have a soul that you love them, and it doesn't matter what color they are. Because remember in the video, he brought in the black pastor from Nashville and worded things like this to build this up, and you love that. You would invite him in your home and have dinner with him?
I wish he would have called me and reached out to me if he had a problem. I've never met him before, but it's saddened when people profess the Christian faith and without even calling me or checking in to see if this was the angle.
Right.
So yeah, of course I would talk to him.
Yes.
Yes.
I just express. I want people to hear this because
here's
this was taken in a way. I'm telling you, the way this was taken out right here, and if you're like, he wants to go back, to where the black people had to ride in the back of the bus. That sounds awful, and we in Jackson County would be like, no, we don't want that type of individuals around here.
No, but we do want to go back to the Constitution and resolve those things in different ways. I think a lot of Tennesseans are sick of the administrative state. In fact, it's funny because one of the things I noticed in the last couple weeks after Trump won the election is how many people love the fact that Elon Musk is there ready to gut the administrative state. He's like talking about slashing departments and firing federal workers, and the American people are cheering at that. That's what I'm leaning into right here.
Right. Okay. I think that's pretty clear. And then now too, as a refresher, they said you want to send people back who have already became citizens. What is your thoughts on about that position? Like, there's people that serve in the military. There's people who go through the legal system the right way, and now the way that they said it, it looks like these people have kids like yours. They have wives like yours, and so as a Christian, you sure wouldn't. You don't want Channel 5 putting your children as Nazis. And so these children now, they are deported the way they viewed that you held to that. Can you explain or talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I can't remember in the clip if they said that I wanted citizens deported or if it was illegal immigrants or what, but either way. So I don't think that citizens should be reported. But there's a lot of legal immigrants, like what happened in Springfield, Ohio. There's a lot of people taking advantage of the asylum system. Stephen Miller, who is he's a advisor for Trump. He's been talking a lot about these loopholes that people take advantage of. And I think the immigration problem is on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
So yeah, illegal immigration is sort of an easy thing to deal with because there's the law of the land issue and they've already committed a crime.
Right. That's why I got up here.
Right. But legal immigrants, well, what kind of legal? Did they go through the process? Were they honest about it? And did they come in the right way? That's one category. I think that's fine. But there's also a lot of like NGOs and charities and international groups that are actually helping people take advantage of the asylum system. You can see an exchange between AOC and Tom Homan, who's the new ICE. He was the ICE director, and he's being tasked with the border. There's an exchange in Congress between those two, and Homan's pushing back against AOC, and he's saying that people are taking advantage of the asylum system. The asylum system is not something, it's not a loophole system. It's a very special type of situation. And so I think when there's millions of people coming in through loopholes, technically that's legal, but I don't think that's fair since there's other immigrants who have gone in the right way. So I think there's some types of legal immigrants that I think that should be handled by this new Trump administration. I think illegals, that's an easy thing. I think a lot of people don't have a problem with me expressing those views, but citizens who have earned their way the old-fashioned way, I think those have been guaranteed the rights of the Constitution, and I'm not a pro, citizen deportation guy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can take some other questions on that. Let's see. There was one statement about putting women back where they belong. Now, there was about 3 or 4 things that I felt like you really need to clear up. The way that News Channel 5 worded it as well, that you didn't want women to go to college and get educated and want to put women back where they belong. We have, you have a wife, you have a daughter?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters. And so people can read the scriptures. He who finds a wife finds a good thing, virtuous wife. 1 Peter 3:1-2 says, wives likewise be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word. So there is a order or role, as we talked about before, with the man and woman. But my view, and what I believe the Bible teaches, is, it says right here in 1 Corinthians 11:3, but I want you to know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. So right here shows that, Christ and God the Father, one is not better than the other. They play different roles. And the same thing with the man and woman. There are certain roles that's put out in the church that, and even we could say in the home, that the man is the leader of the home, but doesn't rule like a boss with an iron fist, like, get in there, lady, I'm better than you. But this is the way they're portraying it. So what's your view on that?
Yeah, so like I think the basic way that I think about this is A, I'm not an individualist, and B, I'm not an egalitarian. I believe that God has structured society. He's given us leaders that we should, look to guide us. Like as a son, I look to my own father. There's a certain type of hierarchy there, and I think that when we approach society as we're all just atomistic individuals and there's no actual structure, I think we begin to lose the benefits that God gave to this world by including within it various social structures. Some of them are government, some of them are church-based. The family is a type of church structure. So I think we should start rethinking what it means to live in a society of structures. There's a framework of things, and that there's a natural order to things. And I think that we should be sort of pious toward those orders that God created, rather than reject them and live in a state of constant revolution.
Where would you go to your source of information to get this order? Is kind of what I'm viewing. Like, would you just go to the Bible, or are you going to the times of the pilgrims? What would be your ideal to say this is what I believe the ideal order should come from?
Well, I think that the Bible vocalizes and supports this, something that was sort of built in to the history of humanity. When God created Adam and Eve, and then he created Cain and Abel, there's a certain dynamic there. And all throughout the Bible, you see this reflection of the natural order. So I don't think the first time that, that the sexes have to consider what their roles are in the home is in the New Testament. I think that these things I think Paul in the New Testament and Peter in the New Testament, they're just reflecting things that have been there since the very beginning. That's the Christian idea of a natural law.
What about voting?
Well, so voting's an interesting one too. So I think that every political system has its own strengths and weaknesses. I think that moderns tend to idolatrize democracy. They treat democracy in an idolatrous way, and I think that we have this idea that every single era of human history is always better than the previous one. And I think that we look too much to this mass democracy, this democracy that came onto the scene in the 20th century, and that every advance in that was good. But my wife would vote, and my mother would vote.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did your wife vote?
My wife voted, yes. Okay. Yeah, so I don't think we should approach these things like it's wrong for them to vote or something. Yeah. But we should also recognize that there are inherent flaws to mass democracy, and that it hasn't always been a benefit. I think the original founding, the republic, is good. I actually like the idea of every household having a vote, and it's this shared representative vote of the household, rather than making it this every individual. And I think that there's elements at play that divide families and pit wives against husbands, and all of those things are very sad developments. And so I like the old republic model of the Constitution, where each household, each property owner has a vote. But I think that every age is different, and in our age, I don't think it's wrong to vote, for a woman or anything.
What about for? Well, this is true. There was someone approached me, and they said something about your view about white women going to college, and she was very successful. She worked in a dentist office, and I mean, my wife works at a dentist office as well. And the way that News Channel 5 worded it, it kind of looked like that basically it was like caveman times. Like, you're going to go back to where women can't be successful in the business world and stuff. So would you say that you're not against that, or you're just, or does society take it too far, or what's your view on, like, if she come to you tonight and said, I got an education, I worked this long, I provided, my husband ran off on me, I took care of the children, and you're saying that I shouldn't get an education, how would you respond as News Channel 5 portrayed you?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with women going to college. I met my wife in college, but on the other hand, I think they showed a clip I don't know if they showed a clip or they just quoted it.
They just quoted it.
They just quoted. They said,
I think so.
Yeah. So, one of the things that's interesting about the framing of everything, and we're going to get to the Emmett Till thing in a bit, I think.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's interesting about the whole framing of this is the fact that this podcast that we're on was basically a few hundred people at the most watching it, but we all have these like inner hidden jokes and all these things.
Right.
So if you scroll back to that episode where that phrase was used, white college women, it was in the context of another discussion when someone else used that phrase, white college women, and the fact that white college women are trending liberal. And we were just talking about the fact, what is going on in society, that all of these women are being sent off to these secular, anti-Christian, basically mill houses, and they're being, formed with worldviews that are very anti-Christian, anti-American, very liberal, and they're instilling beliefs in there. What is happening to the family? What is happening to the American mind? And I think that's the context of our thoughts. And we quoted from that earlier conversation about white college women. But yeah, so like this is the thing that the media does. They take one statement, they cast away all the context, and they use that phrase. There's a difference, by the way, and I want everyone to hear this. There's a difference between being truthful and being factual, right? Did the words college-educated women come out of my mouth? That is a factual phrase that came out of my mouth. Is it a truthful representation of what was happening in the context of the conversation?
Right.
I don't think it was. Now, let me give you another example. A few months before the election, Donald Trump was criticizing Liz Cheney for her pro-war stances on a lot of different things. And he said that Liz Cheney would have a different opinion on war if she was out there in the trenches getting shot at.
Mm-hmm.
And CNN ran with this headline that says, Trump calls for Liz Cheney to be shot at. That's what the media does. Right. And I think everybody gets that. I think everybody knows that. That's why
some people don't. Some people believe it.
I think a lot. But this is why Trump won in a landslide, because people are calling bluff on the media, and I think the same thing's going to happen here.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on. But briefly, I just wanted to show, like, even the Bible teaches, CJ. It says, "But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor serve authority over the man." And this is talking about within the church.
Within the church.
Yeah. And like, there's today female pastors, like people may see this and be like, oh, so he's one of those. No, I believe the Bible, and even there's men who are not married, not eligible to be an elder, So it doesn't mean that you hate men or you hate women. It's the role that's set forth in the Bible, So some people just take things. You did make a statement. You said our heroes are more racist than we can be today. That was a clip they pulled out. Now, my hero would be Jesus and the Apostle Paul. But what did you mean by that?
This is a good question. Why is it that someone can disagree slightly with my view on the Civil Rights Act, and people would want to call my boss and have me fired? Whereas you look at people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and still a lot of Americans see them as heroes. They're men who helped found this country, and they had roles that were way to the right of me on these racial questions, and yet they're allowed to hold those views and be okay. And we critique them and say whether they were just men of their times. Well, today, if we're out of line just one deviation, like the Civil Rights Act thing, where I oppose the creation of new bureaucracies, people want my head. What's going on there? So like the point is that we actually live in an age of a very anti-free speech mentality, where we want to be a nanny state on every single person and make sure that they toe the line on every single modern piety. And I oppose that. I think that we should be much more lenient. We should understand what people are saying, and we should be able to have civil discussions.
Well, after talking to you tonight, you're saying that you're not racist at all. It had to be taken out of context if you're saying, or like joking. I mean, you're 34, right?
Yes.
So one thing I hope that you learn is, like, podcast, you have to be careful how you word things, especially when it gets out. Like,
but this is
even if you didn't mean nothing by it, I guess.
Do we want to create a culture where I always have to be looking over my shoulder?
Well, I think for certain statements.
For certain statements, sure. But for certain statements, sure. But like there is this increasing culture of of like fear and making sure that nobody gets outside the line or they'll have your head. I don't think that's an America we want to live in.
But as a Christian, you know, you want to do good to all men, and you want to be kind to all people. And so we'll elaborate a little bit off of that. This was something that was brought up to some local people, that what Phil said. They hope to move to Jackson County where people look like them and thinks like them. And a lot of people took this as basically Jackson County, because they portrayed you as being, racist. They portrayed you as, degrading women and such. And so, a lot of people was upset about this. And this is why I actually think he came back a second time, because he didn't interview anyone. And then he put that second video out where some local people were together, and he was asking about it. But as we see tonight, you're not racist. If you're against women voting, you're a hypocrite because you said your wife voted. So I hope that some people are seeing that maybe a lot of this was taken out.
Yeah, I think another layer on this is that I think a lot of people have met me in town,
right?
And to my knowledge, and I'm very confident in saying this, everybody has had an enjoyable experience meeting my family and I. And I've had a reciprocal
they had positive
response.
things to say about your family, the ones.
Yeah.
But now after this video, they were kind of like, whoa.
Yeah. And that's what the media does. Again, that's what the media does. And so, like, if anyone, I've met so many different types of people in town, in the county, in the state. And I am confident in saying that no one's had a problem with me in person, right? Obviously, many have a problem with me now, but we'll rectify that in time.
Yeah, well, Matthew 7:12. Therefore, whatever you want men to do unto you, do also unto them. So you have children. Emmett Tillman was like 14 or 15 years old when this happened in 1955. And as people can read a little bit about this, because we forget, even myself, so I have to look this stuff up. But he was lynched for offending a white woman. And, of course, on the podcast, they just take the clips out, you guys laughing and mentioning this. And I'm going to be honest, it looked extremely bad. And one reason I wanted to do this as well is because they put you as a Christian. And then there's a lot of, I deal with atheists, I deal with skeptics, I deal with everyone, and they say, that's why I'm not a Christian. And I'm like, well, Christianity, and you'll be able to clear your name up as well. I mean, right here. But Christianity teaches this right here. Now, you wouldn't want anyone joking about your child or anyone else's child. So I think maybe the lesson learned with you and is it Andrew?
Yes.
The podcast, how you word things and how you laugh, but when they take clips out. So go ahead and express, how do you feel about what you said and why you said it, and to make things right.
So in asking this question, you just said that sometimes you forget and you had to look this up. The context of that whole exchange was that a friend of ours said the same thing. He implied that he didn't remember the full story, and he implied that. And somebody else attacked him for not remembering this. And we were laughing at the audacity of someone to attack our friend for misremembering this historical event. And if you go back and you listen to this episode, both of us were explicitly clear that this was an outrage, that nobody should be the victim of vigilante justice, and this has no role in a just society. What happened to Emmett Till was wrong. I said that then in context, and I'm saying that now. And the context of the laughing was us amused by the audacity of someone to attack our friend for misremembering, which is what you just did. You had to go look that up, which is what happened to our friend.
Well, I talked to a lot of people. It wasn't just me. I mean, I went to school a long time ago, so
exactly.
I don't even remember where I parked when I was at Walmart.
That was our friend's implication, is that he didn't remember.
Gotcha.
And so look, this is not like I'm trying to change my mind. You can go back and listen to the episode. Andrew was very clear. That was explicitly an American tragedy, a distinct American tragedy. It has no place in any civilized nation, and it certainly has no place in any Christian society.
Right, gotcha. I totally agree with you. Because, I mean, this is, we live in a time, too, where we're already divided in a lot of areas. And so with this brought out, they're trying to divide, Christianity as well. And, Christians, true Christians, says, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So Christianity, doesn't look at color and say, well, there's a separation. As you already it said, this was a horrible incident
yes.
that happened. And one thing I wanted to give a shout out for the Churches of Christ right here, this article says, from the 19th century to the dawn of civil rights, the Churches of Christ operated outside of conventional racist customs. Many of their congregations, even in the Deep South, counted whites and blacks among their numbers. And that's why we would present in the Lord's church as, it doesn't matter, color or whatever. And you would agree with that as well. Let's see. We're going to play that video. So
we got some calls too, and I do want to welcome people to talk to me.
We're almost done.
Okay.
I'm just going to go through this one as well. I noticed News Channel 5 interviewed Kevin Riggs. Well, this is a side note. Kevin Riggs, I would say, does not teach the gospel of Christ right here. This is just something secular. So if Kevin Riggs wants to reach out to me, he can come here and we can have a polite discussion on how to become a Christian. But he did a TikTok show. So because people were wanting to know, who is this guy? Why does he get to say so in it?
Mm-hmm.
He's a preacher. Does he not promote Christianity, and does he not pray for the president and biblical principles and things like that? I would hope so. But he mentions right here, listen to this.
Okay.
Thursday, October the 7th, 2 days after.
We'll just bypass it because they're not going to hear it all the way over there. Yeah, that's okay. But my point is, he was upset about the election. So I thought, why? So he's upset about the election. You guys, are openly promoting Donald Trump. He wasn't for Donald Trump. Do you feel like the News Channel 5 got this guy to do the interview for a particular other reason, like politics? I'm just curious what your thoughts is on that.
Yes, this is the question of motivations. This is it. So Matthew talks about this. If a Christian brother has a problem with another Christian brother, what is he to do?
Yeah.
I think the Bible says that he should probably be interviewed on national television and just drag the other believer through the mud.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one option.
Right.
The other option is to address them first.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what happened here. And I don't know Kevin Riggs. I've never met him. I've never interacted with him. And that's a really sad sign as well. That we don't have any correspondence. We've never been engaged with each other in any way. And yet he was there, eager to participate in this massive, hit piece. And I think that really just speaks to sort of the state of the church, the state of the media, and the state of the nation. So, but I don't have anything personal against Kevin Riggs. I've never met him, and I wish him well.
Okay. And so at the this is the last slide. Yeah, last slide.
Getting some calls.
Hey, could you call back in like 2 minutes and we'll take your call?
We lost your signal.
Okay. I bet it's because I turned this on. Maybe somehow that's connected.
Are we back?
Test, test, test. Can you hear me? Give me just a second.
This is going to get to the fun part.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, it sounds like you can hear me now, right? It's coming across. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Can you give me about 1 minute and then we'll take phone calls?
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
We're good. We're back.
Yeah, we're back. It must have been the Bluetooth where I turned it on.
All right.
And so I need to mute this over here. Sorry about that if you guys are viewing. So the last thing was you wanted to take out democracy. You didn't want democracy in place. So can you talk about that?
Sure.
That's what they stated.
Sure. I think America's freedoms have largely been voted away. I think the constitutional republic that we had, that's the American tradition, where we have these rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights, and that these things are not up for vote.
But wouldn't you say this right here, like the definition is that empowers the people? So that, like, really, in some sense, I feel like our country is so great because we're able to come here tonight. We have the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, but I guess the saying is right here, like if you have the wrong people, like the majority of the wrong people, then they could take our freedom away. Is that kind of what you're?
Well, like I'm just playing into like the old founding fathers, the things that they. If you look at the Federalist Papers, for instance, they were very critical of mass democracy, right? They would say things like mass democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what they should have for dinner, right? The two wolves would eat the sheep. I think a constitutional republic emphasizes the fact that we have these inherent rights and that they are not up for vote. And so what I'm saying, like democratic means of choosing our leaders and stuff, those are very good things. I like democratic means. I also think that democracy, the involvement of the town square works much better at a local level. I think there's been, and this is kind of like arcane stuff, people can touch base with me later on it, but I think the 20th century has been this transformation away from constitutional republicanism into more of a mass democracy. And these are two distinct models. And so I'm against mass democracy. I think democratic mechanisms within the context of a constitutional republic, that's a good thing.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and if you guys have my phone number, I'm going to take a couple calls and then I'm going to put the phone number up because it'll be constantly. So thanks for watching. I'm actually going to go ahead and hand the phone over to CJay. You just kind of hold it like this.
Sure.
And please be polite and have good questions.
Go ahead.
Hey, CJay.
How you doing?
Good. I was just curious. I mean, I guess it's great that you moved over here, but I'm just curious, like, if I wanted to open a business up and open it up to all types of folks, like, what does that mean? What's your take on that? Is that a problem?
I think that that's your right and that's your initiative, and there's nothing I would be interested in doing to stop it. I mean, that's the full extent of my answer. I think that that's one of the great things about Americans is we can have these sort of like ideological disagreements, but still maintain the fact that businesses should be able to do what the business owners decide. And I think freedom of association is one of the rights that's been enshrined in the First Amendment, and I stand by that.
Well, that sounds all right, but I mean, I want to make sure that, like, the people, I guess this is maybe a question for your host there, like, is this a good place for me to bring a business? I mean, do these people, are they supportive of local business?
Well, I mean, I have a business myself, and we operate right here in Gainesboro. And, I think one of the things that I'm interested in is bringing friends out that also have businesses. And I would hope that Jackson County becomes a flourishing small town with all types of different businesses. And I think that I can say that, and I, would hope that you believe me. But if not, like I would say that in the next, few years, I think that I am willing to show the fact that we are very interested and happy to have all sorts of, growth and, business development and grow the area. That's something that I'm interested in for sure.
I just look at this town and I just see, this seems like a great place with a lot of great folks. And I just think I want to keep it that way. And it just sounds like you moving here, being part of it is not going to hurt that at all. It just seems like you're part of us in a way,
Well, I hope that my actions, speak in the same way as I'm speaking now. But yes, that's my goal. Thank you for being welcoming, by the way. I appreciate that.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.
All right. You have a good night, sir. Well, I think people maybe will have a different view upon. I mean, there's some people who are going to be still about the land. So the people wanted me to ask, they're a little upset that you didn't buy the 600 acres, right?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't have that kind of money.
Okay. But you were part of, they bought it and you're using what they bought, or can you elaborate on that?
I'm saving up my money to buy, as much as I can from them so I can have a farm. And
Is it Josh or Joshua?
Josh, I call him Josh. He's my friend.
Josh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's the head of Ridge Runner, and so he's the one that's driving that. And yeah, I know Josh, and I would like to, have an opportunity to live in the greater region. There's 1.2 million acres in this top 3 counties in Tennessee, and the bottom 3 counties in Kentucky. There's 1.2 million acres, and I think there's a lot of land for everyday American families to basically buy in and start their own hobby farms.
Well, some people was like, why isn't the mayor and the police stopping this? If you can buy land if you have the money. I mean, who can stop you? And then local people are selling it in that fashion. But the point, I was going to ask you this: is he also opening it up for local people to buy?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course. And we're not going to divide it up into little plots and overdevelop it either. I mean, that's one of the things that we often talk about is how do we responsibly engage in community growth without turning it into look, I fled California. A lot of the reason I left it was because of how oversaturated it was. So how do we do this in a way that's consistent with the region? And that's something that we talk about all the time. We don't want people to hate us, and we don't want people to be driven from their own homes. I would hope that local people buy and keep the roots that they've been given.
Okay.
I would hope that local people are interested in participating with us.
And then too, some of the things, like News Channel 5 said, that you guys were doing this under the radar, but if you're broadcasting it on podcast, how are you doing that under the radar?
Oh, is he a conspiracy theorist? I don't know. Okay. I have no idea.
And local people didn't know about it. You know why local people didn't know about it? It's because we have lives. We have jobs. We have ball games. You know what I'm saying? We have our own problems and stuff like that.
Sure.
Okay, someone was texting. I'm going to go ahead and open the phone lines. There is a delay with the stream, and so again, remember to have manners. Remember, teenagers are watching this, so when you call in and you act rude and you wonder why your children are rude, that could be why. So just remember that. Be good examples. He has, I believe, cleared up a lot of the things. I know that I don't usually do interviews, so I know there's a lot of things that I have forgotten maybe to ask, that if people want to ask, they can ask you. Some of them had the view that you were a big bad wolf. So, all right, I appreciate you calling. I'm going to go ahead and hand you over to CJay, okay? And if you're watching this and the YouTube is playing in the background, you might want to mute it. And there is a delay, so the next caller, let this person get off the phone, please.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
They're not used to the delay, so you can go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. What about your children? Are they going to be going to school over here in Jackson County?
I plan to continue homeschooling them for the time being. That's how I grew up, and my wife grew up, so that's what we'll be doing.
Because there's been a lot of talk in the school system about about this.
Mm-hmm.
And when does he plan on interviewing the other guy that is in your podcast?
Well, Andrew's not in town yet, but so I don't know if there's any plans to do that. But I don't want to speak for him, but I think that they plan to homeschool as well.
Okay, because he seems to be the one that laughs about everything, and I think that gets people upset here in Jackson County too.
I think that there was this framing of things where we were laughing at things that are obviously not laughable. So I hope that, in time, through our actions and our fruit, we can sort of send a different message about who we are and all of that. And I think that if anybody meets Andrew in town, you'll find him constantly laughing. That's sort of what he's known for, and he's probably listening to this and laughing right now.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. You have a good night. And there is a lot of talk. Of course, we live in a small town.
Mhm.
And I said the other day, I said, hey, we finally made it on the map. But of course it was
Yeah.
it was portrayed in a negative
Yeah,
way.
of course.
All right, thanks for calling. I'm going to go ahead and let you speak to CJay. Thank you.
Will I have to? Yes. Will I have to turn my phone down or anything?
No, I think you sound good right now.
Okay. Thank you. Uh-oh. Okay. Here we go.
Probably get a little closer to the mic.
Go ahead with your question.
You have to just ignore it.
This one?
Yeah. You have to slide it up.
Oh.
What happened?
I think I can hear you, and I'm ready when you are.
Sure. But I lost my connection on the podcast. Here we go. I found it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about the podcast. Just talk like you would on the phone. We can record it.
I'm listening.
Hello there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Good.
can.
I'm ready when you are. Okay, go for it.
My question. So you were talking about that you were on board with like locals buying the land. Are you going to price? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry about the echoes.
Basically, I think she's asking about the pricing.
Yeah, the pricing.
Josh.
Is that what you're asking about, the pricing, whether...
I'm curious if your company would look for a California price for Jackson County land, because Jackson County people live pretty meagerly. A lot of us do.
Mhm.
And we would love to be able to afford the land. I'm curious about pricing.
Well, I'm not part of Ridge Runner, and I'm the only Californian. And I do think that the land out here is much cheaper, than like, a lot of other places in the country. And so I would hope that as land comes onto the market, I think it'll be, hopefully it'll be accessible to more people than it otherwise be. I think I can't speak entirely for Ridge Runner, but, from my relationship with them, they don't have a profit maximalist mindset. They really want, we came here for a reason. That's because we like the region the way that it is, and we want to partake in it. And so I don't think gutting the region of its profits is the way that we think about our goals here. And in fact, I would say that one of the reasons I was interested in Ridge Runner is because they are very much a counter BlackRock or a counter Bill Gates. We don't want those internationalist, leftists basically doing the same thing that they've done to California and Oregon and Washington. And so I do know and I do trust that their mentality is much more about preservation than it is about profit maximalization. And so that's sort of what I would say to that. And I do hope that locals can, obviously everyone can't buy in, but I think that that's their overall mentality, and I do appreciate that. Because that's one of the things that drove me out of California that was so devastating to me and so many other locals there. And that's been burned on my mind. And I hope that I can, participate in that goal that they have.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that very much. I wanted to make a comment
Sure.
on a couple of things. I commend you for your homeschooling. There's no better place for a child to get their education and a healthy love of God than with their family. And the school systems are wonderful, but there's no better place than in the home. I truly commend you on that.
Well, that's the way I was raised.
And
so
I would make another comment.
Sure.
When you were talking about women in college, that is so true that women that are leaning left very hard, that is happening in our colleges. And it's such a shame. The colleges have become a breeding ground of very leftist ideology, and it is so sad.
I agree.
It's promoting every these freedoms that are they're truly not freedoms, like abortion, and it just it's so sad.
I agree with
the
you.
education is like last, and the indoctrination is first. But we want them to be able to go and get that education, and we want them to be able to do the things that they want to do. But I sure hope that we can. We just need to be in prayer for our colleges and for our women that are seeking to have a career, that they can get through their college without being indoctrinated.
All right.
Amen. Thank you for that.
Thank you, ma'am,
I appreciate those
for
comments.
calling. You have a good, safe night.
Thank you.
And someone else just called. Sorry, I had to hang up, but you can call right back right now because there's no one calling. And let's see, or I might be able to call them back. I'll just have them, they can call back. That usually happens sometimes when I had debates. There's multiple people calling.
Of course.
And some things said that the caller was saying about abortion. I'm against abortion. You're against abortion.
I'm pro-life. Yeah.
Okay. I think the Bible teaches against abortion, but. All right. Thanks for calling. I'm going to go ahead and give you to CJay. Okay.
Okay.
How you doing?
CJay, you're pretty, against women and blacks on your podcast and everything. I was just kind of wondering, how do you feel about the Melungeon people?
About the what people?
Are you ready to have them exported out of the country too?
The who now?
The Melungeons.
I don't know who those are. Sorry.
Exactly. So, are you really an American? Or are you a spy from Russia? Well, I mean, what's your deal, buddy? Why are you in Jackson County?
Yeah, I'm an American and I love this country, and I'm here because I think it represents the American ethos much better than California did, and I'm honored to be here and prove myself by my actions.
You don't even know who the Melungeons are.
That's correct.
You don't even know anything about this. You don't even know anything about the area you're in.
That's correct. But I'm open to learning.
Now you know who they are.
Maybe you should learn a little bit more before you come in here. I got a question. Why are you in Jackson County?
Because
why aren't you in Trousdale County with your buddy Josh Abatoy, where he's from? Why aren't y'all buying land there? Why are you buying it here?
Because I like the region, I like the way it is, and I want to participate in it and own land out here. I like the state of Tennessee, and I like the freedoms that it offers.
But I mean, our particular county in Tennessee, why are you here? Why are you not in Trousdale County? Why did you not stop in Clay County on your way from Burkesville? I mean, why are you in our county?
Because first of all, I think that there's other families that are moving into those counties as well. This isn't just like a very county specific thing. Ridge Runner decided to have its headquarters here, and I'm going to buy up north closer to the Kentucky, border and do my thing and live my life there. But I like the overall region, and I think that's my general answer.
Well, okay, so
Birchville.
Why are y'all buying all the land in the sixth district of Jackson County?
We're not buying, anywhere close to all the land. We have a few hundred acres.
I mean, all the land you're buying is in one district.
Oh no, they have land up in Kentucky as well. I mean, there's basically.
You ain't got a clue. You don't even know what I'm asking.
I do. You're asking why I specifically chose. Yeah, so you're asking why I specifically chose Jackson County, and it's because I like the overall region.
Why is all your land in Jackson County, except for a little bit in Gainesboro, why are you buying big chunks of land in the 6th district?
I'm buying in Jackson County because I like the region, and it seems like a good place to raise families, and this is where my friends decided to go.
Who's your friends?
Well, Josh Abatoy and Andrew and people like that, and we have friends here that have grown up here as well.
How'd you meet them?
On the internet. That's where you meet people these days. Yeah. Well,
I'm a little old-fashioned.
Look, well, I appreciate your cynicism, and I don't take it offensively. So thank you for calling in, and I hope to earn a better reputation over the next couple of years.
Well, let me tell you, Salina's a real nice town. Maybe you need to check it out before you do too much in Jackson County. Maybe you want to go to Clay County and try. I mean, One Stop Barbecue is awesome. Ollie's. They got the lake. I mean, I bet you boys could have a big time up there at the lake.
Yeah, I like Salina as well.
Well, I mean, maybe you need to look at buying some land there. Pea Ridge, Moss.
Yeah, well,
Look around there a little more before you come down there and try to. And here's another problem, buddy.
Sure.
With y'all coming in buying land from Jackson County people, you're taking that land away. Then you're marketing that land to people from Minnesota, California, Wyoming, Colorado, wherever it is you're trying to get them from.
Mm-hmm.
That land will never be able to be back in the hands of young people from Jackson County who want to buy a house of 2 acres, 5 acres, 15 acres, whatever. They'll never be able to get it because it's going to be in y'all's little Nazi party. And I mean, I don't understand how you think that's good for our people. Y'all coming to our county. I mean, you're not welcome. Anything that you're doing, buying up our land and keeping it away from it being able to, for our young people to be able to stay at home and have farms of their own, I mean, that's not cool.
Yeah, one of the things I wonder though is if we can get more businesses and growth in the town, that people's wages might go up and that they may too have an opportunity to buy into land where they previously don't have the means to do so. So I would hope with overall regional growth, the locals can be able to participate in things like this. And that's my answer to that too. And I hope that there is growth here and there are jobs made, and that people do live better lives and have their families able to get out onto the farms. And so like I do appreciate your frustrations, and I take them to heart. So thank you for calling.
So is your main objective in this project to make money?
No, I don't think that's accurate at all. In fact, we talk about this all the time. As a group.
Then why don't you take all the money that y'all got and buy the land and then sell it for cheaper to people?
Because we have to feed our own families as well. And
you're making money. Your main objective is making money.
That's not our main objective, but I do hope that we can contribute to the overall development of the area. But I appreciate you and wish you well. So we'll expect.
All right. Thanks for calling. Here I got a message. Someone said if the land is for sale, anyone can buy it, and that's just the facts of life.
Well, I think there's a lot of focus on
local people sold it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have local people.
This is a big irony of everything.
Here's another call.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks for watching. Here's CJay.
How you doing?
Hey CJay, I'm good.
Good.
So my question is that if you and your friends open businesses in Jackson County, would you discriminate against who you hire? So, would you hire a gay person, an educated white person, a black person, a Mexican, etc.? Thanks for answering questions.
Sure, thank you for asking. Yeah, no,
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I don't plan on discriminating, but I do think that I'll hire someone that fits with the ethos of the town and in our families and the consumers around here too. But like I don't operate a business in terms of
just go ahead and answer the next call.
Discriminating. Oh, okay.
He just wanted to ask that question.
I think he's still on. Are you still on?
Yep, I'm still on. Yep.
Yeah. No, I don't have any plans to discriminate at all. That's not really my style. So no, there's no plans for that approach to running a business or hiring people.
All right. Well, thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Well, we had another one, but there is a delay. I don't know if you ever seen a live stream on YouTube. There's about a 20-second delay. I want to remind individuals, you got 1 Corinthians 13, 4-6 about love. There's a lot of people who think it's all about money.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I can't judge your heart. Can't judge Josh's motives.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he openly comes out and says, what he believes or whatever. But again, right here for the viewers does not behave rudely. We don't want to be rude. All right. Thanks for calling and watching.
Hey, Travis.
CJay here. Go ahead, and I'm ready for you.
Okay. I have a question about you all stating that you were going to plant a flag and start a town.
Mhm.
I don't understand that exactly because we are currently a town. So I wasn't really for sure what that meant.
It's probably analogous. Plan like I don't have any plans to start a town. I mean, Andrew likes his analogy, so maybe you heard that from him. But I don't have any plans to start any town. In fact, that's one of the things that we really, and I say this very very seriously. Our plan is to assimilate into the culture of the area and to participate in making Gainesboro a better place to live. To the extent that we're welcome to. So that's the agenda. Not starting a town. If that came up, then it was said in an analogous way. But yeah, Gainesboro is a great town, and I think it's very charming, and I think it has a lot of growth ahead of it, and I think that's sort of what we are looking for.
Well, and I appreciate that, but then you just now said we're looking forward to more growth. But then earlier you said you want to, you love the small town feel.
Yeah.
Well, if we don't want to be Cookeville, we don't want to be Nashville, we don't want to be Chattanooga, we don't want to be Knoxville. We want to remain as we are. Now, granted, I say that, and I would love to have business here. We've had factories in the past. I have 2 daughters who are in college that are planning on coming back here. I want them to have something, but I don't want 50 families moving in and making it unrecognizable. So
Right.
Is that the plan?
Let me speak from the heart here. Let me speak from personal experience. As I said earlier, I grew up in a very small town, mountain town in California. And one of the things that was most devastating to me is seeing the places that I grew up razed to the ground, put strip malls in, housing developments, right next to each other. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart. On one hand, we want to preserve what we find. And I do love the small town, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm not in Cookeville. And when you talk about 50 families moving in, just keep in mind that we're talking all the way up into Kentucky. There's 1.2 million acres. You could hide hundreds of families and never notice them. So, I mean, keep that in mind. I do think growth is distinct from overdevelopment, and that's one of the things that we have to talk about. The last 30 years of American life has been saturated by these mass big box developers that have destroyed small town America. And we want to repudiate that explicitly and in practice. Every time we have something in mind, if we want to invite someone in that wants to open a deli, how do we do it in a way that caters to the small townness of Gainesboro, provides jobs so that people can take care of their families, but also doesn't get down into the Nashvilleization of Gainesboro. So yes, that's very much on the forefront of my mind, and it is a hard dynamic. I mean, Trump talks about making America great again. So how do you do that in a way that caters to the small town American, Main Street America? I think that we have to be very careful and conscious about it. And yes, that's something that's on our mind. I don't think that tripling, quadrupling the size of the area is good for anybody. And it's especially not why I came here. It's actually why I fled the area that I was born in. So you can take that to heart and see that my actions are consistent with my words here. But yes, I don't want the town to explode. But I do want that healthy, natural, and organic growth that provides good jobs for good families. And that's what I'm all about.
Okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate you answering my question.
You bet. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That is a good question. I mean, we do talk about this a lot, like how do we lean into the small townness of Gainesboro and make it a better place instead of just overdeveloping everything.
You want to read that one out loud? It's a text.
It says, CJ, thank you for putting up with the nonsense. Welcome. No problem at all. I welcome the cynicism.
Thanks for watching. You want to speak to CJ?
Yes, I'd love to.
Okay. Let me hang up on that one calling in.
How you doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead.
A little closer.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm married to an educated woman, and I'm curious, why are you so against educated white women?
I'm not against college-educated white women, but I do believe that, as the previous caller mentioned, that there's a lot of propaganda in the schools, and so many families are being torn apart by this, like fourth wave feminism that's, you know, really undermining our culture. And so that's what I'm against, is the product of that view of the university system. But no, I'm not. I met my wife in college, and I'm okay with my daughters going to college. So that's my answer.
Well, what do you feel about public education? Since you're moving into this county, we have plenty of educated white women that do teach in this county. They do a fantastic job with our children in this county, and they raise quality young men and young women.
Mm-hmm. My mom was a
So are you?
my mom was a school teacher, and I have no problem with that, and I think that is a great blessing to every community, is to have these, you know, these college educated women, you know, giving back and teaching our children. I have no problem with that at all.
You ever seen the movie Inglourious Bastards?
I'm sorry, I haven't. No.
Hey, maybe you should. Maybe you get an idea of what might happen if you guys do what you're thinking about doing around here.
All right. Well, I appreciate the feedback.
Someone was just calling. So you do have some negative, some positive, some just want to know more what's going on. They're calling back. So you do have some negative, some positive.
I can hear you when you're ready.
You can mute your YouTube or TV. Go ahead and speak, please.
Yeah. So I have a couple of questions. The first
Hold it
is,
closer.
and I just started watching, so maybe you've answered this one, but you have talked about heritage Americans. Could you explain what heritage Americans are?
Sure. I think.
Or what you mean by it?
Sure. I think that something happened in the 1960s where we began to think of America as an economic zone, and it was basically a place where anybody in the entire world could become an American, or actually is an American, just by assenting to, you know, various propositions. And one of the things that I noticed about, like, you know, the Trump campaign, and especially JD
Just hang
Vance,
up on them.
you know, one of the things that I noticed about that is they were leaning into an older understanding of America, where America is a place that our ancestors built, and America is something, it's a collection of memories, it's an inheritance, and it's a place and a people. And I think that's what I think of when I think of Heritage America, is it's something that's more rooted, and it's something that exists prior to this, you know, 1970s proposition nation. I think these get like a little bit, you know, abstract concepts, but my basic understanding of a heritage American is someone who appreciates and represents and leans into the ethos of America going back to the founding. So that's my general definition of a heritage American: someone who loves and appreciates what we as current Americans have inherited from our ancestors, and that's my definition.
And so by ancestors, do you mean European ancestors?
I think that, yeah, I think that the European settlers were the core of the American ethos for sure. Now, these things have developed and evolved since then. They've expanded out, you know, from there. I have half of my family line is sort of Scotch-Irish, and it goes way back deep into the 19th century. You know, and I have other portions of my line that are in the 20th century with the Italian immigration. So I think that I think it's generally an ethos, and I think that this sort of like Anglo-American is the core, and then it built out from there. And I think, like, recognizing that we do have a tradition that comes from you know, this ethnic background is completely permissible. It doesn't mean that, like, if somebody is not of that racial makeup, they cannot be a citizen, they're not welcome here. I don't think that's the right approach either. But there is something core to our American history that really develops from England and the Puritans and all those things. And I think we should remember those things in an age where they want us to misremember our history, and they want to liquidate our heritage, and they want to erase the things that we have inherited. I think it's good for us to remember who we are. So yeah, I do think that there is a core, but I don't think it's like racially essentialist, like someone is not welcome to be a citizen because of their racial makeup. So that's my general. It's a very conservative, you know, approach to the issue, and it's basically the view of like Tucker Carlson or JD Vance or something like that. I think a lot of people are beginning to ask, you know, who are we as a people, and I'm participating in that grappling of who we are as a people.
So the other question I have is concerning the Civil Rights Act.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have said that you would be in favor of repealing the Civil Rights Act, So the question I would have, I mean, if that's the case, the question I would have is, would you be comfortable with returning to an era where you have whites only restaurants and such?
No, absolutely not. No, if you listen, if anyone's watching this and they didn't listen to my earlier discussion of it,
Yeah, we addressed that.
Yeah, my opposition is to the administrative bureaucracy and the encroachment of the federal government into the states and the localities. But I'm not for segregation, and I think it's very harmful to the soul of a nation to participate in those things.
So what would be your absent the Civil Rights Act? What would be your solution to segregation then?
I think that states need to address these things under the 10th Amendment, that states have the moral imperative to deal with the well-being of their people within the state, and the Constitution doesn't delegate that type of power to the federal government. I think states should be aware of what's happening there and have the right under the Constitution to address those things. I also think that churches and families and communities need to be involved in combating those type of structures.
But you do realize that repealing the Civil Rights Act may, in fact, lead to some states not addressing segregation and would return quite possibly to segregation. I mean, you certainly have to acknowledge that, right?
I don't think any state is close to doing that, no.
Well, they're not, because they can't.
I don't think they would anyways.
Okay, but that's just what you think. You don't. I mean, that's what you think, but you don't know that, do you?
Correct. I don't know for sure, but I do think that.
So that's a possibility. So that's a possibility, and you're comfortable with that possibility.
Well, what I'm comfortable with is the fact that states should they should be aware of the fact that the government has taken way too much control of our lives, and I think that they should push back on those structures. And if other things come up, then I think that the states should address those things with the resources that they have, and I would hope that they do so.
So, but the whole point of the Civil Rights Act is because states were not doing it in 1960. States were not addressing this issue in 1960.
Mm-hmm.
You think that something has changed between then and now?
Yes. Yes, I think.
And what has changed? What has prompted that change? Was it the conservative movement that prompted that change, or was it something else?
No, I think that the overall spirit of the people have recognized that Jim Crow laws were bad, and I think that based on that fact, and I think that most 99% of Americans would agree with that, and on that fact alone, I would say that I don't think that that's presently a concern that would return to Jim Crow laws. I don't think that's on the horizon, and I'm comfortable, opining that the American people are not racist in that way anymore. I am confident in saying that.
And you don't think, for example, that liberalism and I would say, I mean, you call yourself a paleo-conservative, but I would say, or neoconservative, or whatever. But you wouldn't say that liberalism has had any effect at changing the American people's opinion about that issue.
I think it's had a massive effect. Yes.
Okay, so it has.
Yes.
So the whole point. So then I guess you would say that there is some good in liberalism, then, right?
Sure. I think another one of the great contributions of liberalism is to teach the neoconservatives that war is not the solution to every problem. I think that that's another aspect of a lot of us thinking these things, is that war is not always the solution, that Americans should take care of our own people first. Those are things like that the liberals contributed to during the Vietnam era, etc.
if I could ask one more question.
Sure.
You've also talked about being in favor of mass deportation, which I understand that Donald Trump has also endorsed. So I'm assuming that would be mass deportation of illegal immigrants. Would there be deportation also of legal immigrants?
Well, I mean, first of all, we discussed.
Just answer that question.
Yeah.
And then let him go.
Yeah, we discussed this earlier, but I do have a problem with people taking advantage of the asylum system. But I am not for deporting citizens and those that came in above board and according to the actual purpose of our immigration laws. I'm not seeking to deport them. I also have no power to do any of this anyways. But yeah, illegals and those who have taken advantage of the asylum system are the primary object of my deportation opinions.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time.
Yeah, one more is fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So you're attempting to do something that is similar to what Doug Wilson is attempting to do in Moscow, Idaho, correct? By building a community there in Tennessee, like a Christian to Christianize the government and the area. Is that correct?
No, I don't think that's accurate. I think that one thing that's different between us and Moscow is that Moscow created more of a community built around Doug Wilson and his church, whereas we want to integrate ourselves and assimilate into the culture of Jackson County as it currently exists. It's a little bit of a different model.
With a similar goal, is that correct? Or
Basically, are you wanting to start a church?
Well, Andrew's a pastor and he wants to have a church. I go to a church in Cookeville that's been there for a long time. So, I mean, that's a good example that different people are going to different churches. And like I said, I think assimilation is a better way to think about what we want to do rather than creating something from scratch and making the town conform to our vision.
And okay, and what flavor of Christianity are you?
Well, I personally go to a Southern Baptist church in Cookeville.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night, sir. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
I know you had to hang up on some people that kept calling.
Maybe we could do 10 or 15 more minutes and then we can do a little outro.
Yeah, someone says, "Hey CJ, you're handling all the calls well. Those who watch the podcast in full will see your fruits and your intentions. God bless you and your family, and glad you are part of Jackson County." All right, thanks for watching Truth with Proof. I'll hand the phone over to CJ.
Hi, how are you? Good, thank you. Go ahead.
Good. So I think you might have touched on it a little bit, but I really want to stress it because I've kind of seen it over time
Sure.
in different ways. Are you looking to be an immigrant that changes things? Are you looking to kind of strengthen and reinforce what's already here? Because the people that I have had problems with over time and kind of pushed me to a different place were the ones who wanted to keep their own culture. They'd fly their own Mexican flags, not conform to American culture, or foreign nationals from all over different countries. So
yeah,
you want to try to change what's here, and how do you want to change it, or just keep things the same? What's the goal there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the word that I would use is assimilation. I want to conform my family to the way that Jackson County does things, but I also do think that it's healthy to contribute in any way that I can to things like jobs, to have, a nice local economy where people can get jobs in their own town, things like that. So I think assimilation is a good way to think about, what I have on my mind. My family wants to fit in. We're not seeking to, overhaul the town or anything like that. I have no plans to run for office or anything. So I think assimilation, but also, just the way my dad taught me to leave things better than, when you got there. If you're going camping, to make it cleaner than how you found it. So I'd like to make a positive impact, to the extent that I have, limited resources, but in any way I can contribute to making the town a good place to live. I'd like to do that, but I'd like to do it in a way that, I'd like to fit the culture of Jackson County and its history. So that's something that will have to be proved over time. That's just my words now, but that's something that's important to me, and I hope to live that out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's really similar motivations for why I moved my family here, and
Right.
that you're all finding my book then. So
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you for calling, and have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm sure someone will call right here in a second. We're probably going to take one or two more calls. You call in, just get right to your question, because I know we've been on a while, and we live in Gainesboro, so we only have one dollar store, and I'm sure you're going to see CJ out in town at the dollar store.
I'm very hungry. Is that what you're asking?
Well, we don't have any restaurants, so people's going to see you about, so they can still come up to you and say,
of course,
hey,
yes.
And
let me, so
yeah,
we should talk about that when you're after this.
All right. Thanks for calling. Here's CJ.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Good.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I go to Jackson County High School.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, people are saying you're trying to build a school. Is that true?
No.
So you're not. Continue.
Yeah, I'm not trying to build a school. I do think that it's possible. I have friends that are interested in schooling and different resources for homeschoolers or whatever. So I can't say there won't be any of that. But I personally we homeschool our kids, and I don't have the mental bandwidth or the resources to build something like that. But I think it's possible that someone else in our community might be interested in building a private Christian school or something, possibly, but not me personally.
You like sports?
Do I like sports?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
You should come out and watch them play basketball.
You know him?
I don't know him.
Oh, Jackson County.
Yeah, the high school team.
Yeah, I'd love to. Of course. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. So my answer is no. But that's just my personal thing. We homeschool, and we plan to keep doing that. So appreciate you calling in.
I was also wondering, who is your dream guest on your podcast?
Who is my dream guest?
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Carlson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was it. That was all I had.
Yeah. Do you have his phone number? You should tell him to call me.
I'll try to find it.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate you calling in.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, we'll see if someone else calls.
I'll take one last one. If you have a serious question,
here we go.
Because
there it is.
In a lot of ways, this is a serious matter. But
lost him.
Yep.
He'll call back.
I can call him back. All right. Thanks for watching. Here's CJay.
I just have a couple of questions really fast.
Sure.
I was informed, and it may or may not be true, maybe hearsay, I don't know, that your group had went to Fentress County trying to do the same thing, and their town came together, and that's why you guys went to Burkesville and
Can't quite hear you, but
after Burkesville, you cut out.
Yeah. So we haven't tried this before. No, we can't quite hear you, but we haven't done this before. And there's, we're not really doing much. It's basically just we're trying to buy land for ourselves.
Go ahead and answer the next one.
Is this one? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll answer this one. Hi, this is CJay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I've heard everything this evening, but what role do you play in this?
Say that one more time.
What role? Like
Oh, what role?
basically, you just basically
Oh,
have
I'm
trying to buy the land from Joshua. or
Yeah,
no?
yeah. I don't.
You keep talking about somebody's backing you, but you have a role or a title or
No,
some initiative to do this.
no. I'm just a friend of Josh's. I'm not connected. I'm not an employee or anything at all. I'm just a a dad who wanted to move his family to the area. I have absolutely no role or title or function beyond just a dad and a friend.
So he is supporting you to save your money to buy a place, correct?
I've been saving for a long time to buy land, and I couldn't afford it in California.
And so you're buying it from Josh.
I am buying it from Josh. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. You keep saying, why are you on that podcast if you have nothing to do with this organization?
The podcast has nothing to do with it either. This is one of the mischaracterizations. I think Phil Williams misled a lot of people about that. The podcast has no connection to Ridge Runner.
It looked like you and Andrew are the one trying to buy and build everything and
Right.
start like
No,
this.
no, no.
They've been saying a cult.
Well, I don't think Phil Williams done anything. He states facts. Y'all bought a lot of land.
Okay.
You're telling me you can't afford it.
I don't work with Ridge Runner. I'm going to buy some from Josh. Yes.
Well, that's who they need to talk to. They have initiative to do something, whether you know it or not. You're not telling it.
Yeah. A lot of this land, people are trying to sell it, and Josh is a willing buyer, and so he is buying it. But there's nothing nefarious about that. That's just an everyday land purchase,
Like here it is. They come in here every day and buy 600-700 acres.
Mm-hmm.
$2 million. Yeah, they do that every day.
Who does?
No, he's being sarcastic.
Oh. Yeah, I don't represent Ridge Runner, but yeah, I am trying to buy some land from him.
How much land have you bought?
Yeah, but why are you speaking for?
Well, I'm speaking for myself because I was the object of the article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you for calling.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Got some.
A couple text messages.
Yeah. Someone says, CJay, where do you see yourself in 20 years?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I hope to see myself, running a little farm with my sons. I hope to see my sons as productive citizens of the county. So I don't know. I haven't thought that far in advance. It's a crazy world, and I'm just trying to
Hang
stay
on just
ahead.
a second.
That's it.
I'm going to ask this question for CJay, and then I'll hand the phone over to him. Another question was, do you know if Ridge Runner is seeking a religious exemption to the Fair Housing Act?
They're not.
Basically, are they trying to use it as religion?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right, there you go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. You say you don't work for Ridge Runner.
Yes.
But how come the LLC connected to Ridge Runner is the office that you work out of and the house that you live at?
So the office is a shared office. There's a couple different businesses in there. There's going to be an architect that works out of there. I work out of there. So I am a customer of theirs, and I do pay rent, to them. But I'm not officially with them in any capacity. I don't receive any money from them, and I'm not employed.
Okay. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that y'all are kind of marketing this kind of land development or real estate project, right?
I'm not. Andrew has been marketing it. I haven't marketed the project, no.
Okay. Well, thanks for your question.
You bet. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I think we should start to
Someone asked about.
wrap up.
Someone asked who we're playing next week. Well, we'll answer that. I'll answer you that when we get off the air. Basketball, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time. What I would say is, get to know me a little bit. You'll see my children around town. You'll see my wife around town. You'll see me around town. Please come up and say hi. They're very friendly. If you want to like yell at me or something, let's do it when the kids are not around. But I really appreciate those of you who have reached out and expressed warmth and hospitality. I really appreciate that. And for those that are much more opposed to everything going on, they're much more cynical. Please know I don't hold that against you in any way, and I hope to earn your respect over time by my actions. And I think that one thing I want to take away from this is I hope that my actions speak louder than my words. And right now it's my words versus the presentation that you all saw earlier this week. And I would just say, in 1 year from now, did my actions line up with my words? And who brought more chaos to the town? Did Phil Williams bring more chaos to the town, with his report, or did I and my friends? And I would just say, if you can tolerate it, please, give us a chance. If you can't tolerate it, just please know that I don't hold that against you in any way. I think that I believe that we're good people, and I love my family, and I pray for their safety. There was major implications that we were a Nazi group, and I think that's unconscionable, and I think that's against every ethical standard of good journalism. And I think that they did the same thing to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and I think that several weeks ago, the American people said, we're not going to tolerate that anymore. We're going to reject those narratives. One of the things that I've been talking about too is that it wasn't just the Democratic Party that lost big, 3 weeks ago. It was the media establishment. It was the legacy media. And I think that a lot of people are frustrated with that, and I'm frustrated with that. And now I'm on the receiving end of all sorts of nasty comments against my children and me for this. And I just want to lean into that. And, Phil keeps messaging me about making like an online, a video statement. And I'm not going to do that until I get, some sort of apology. Like, labeling me a Nazi is the same thing they did to Trump a few weeks before there was like an assassination attempt on him. So
tonight I think you cleared up.
But this is a serious thing.
Yeah.
Is it okay to take a small family and to drag them through the mud and to dismiss them as National Socialists from Germany? I don't think that's okay. And I really hope that whatever you think about this project, you at least remember that I have a family, that I have a wife, that I have children, and it's actually their safety and their well-being that chiefly caused me to come on tonight.
Yeah.
I think it's completely inappropriate to drag a family through the mud. And I hope that the American people, or the Tennesseans or Jackson County watching this, whatever you think about what I'm doing, that is not okay.
Yeah.
And I don't appreciate that. And that's my overall statement. And then, I am forgiving. I am a forgiving person. And I think that we all deserve, a second chance. And if he wants to reach out to me and apologize, I'll accept that. But
faithful Christians, if you want to read this right here, faithful Christians should have this mindset. Galatians 16, want to read it?
Sure. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith.
But it says, let us do good to who?
To all.
To all.
To
are
all.
You all?
I think so.
Oh, I think so too. So even though we can disagree, I have religious debates. I disagree with people, but I wish them the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's even to the degree where they say they're Christians. I don't even believe they're Christians, but I wish them the best. I would never, wish any harm or slander them or attack them as a person or anything like that.
Right.
So someone did say, and we're going to wrap it up, about me saying there's no restaurants here. Well, I think I've got a phone call about the time I was saying that, and I said, well, we have a dollar store and we have a couple restaurants. We do only have like a handful. So I don't know if you've been to Helen's, and there's Bull and Thistle and Giovanni's.
Stolen Coin. Agaves. I've been to Agaves several times.
Okay, so yeah. So I'm just saying we don't have a lot, and we live in a small town, so more than likely they're going to run into you in person.
Yes, and my family.
No,
treat them well, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you have a family, so and I would want people to be kind to my family as well.
Right.
Just like you would want people to be kind if you have children to you, especially you mamas. You know how it is. If someone messes with the children, that's going to get rough. And did have a message from, I'm not going to say who it is, but everyone's going to know watching. She asked if you was interested on being the soccer board.
Being on the soccer board.
Yeah.
I'd be interested. I played soccer in college, so I'd be interested.
And then someone says, thanks for doing the show tonight. They were interested in your comments and you addressing things. So,
well, I don't think I got to everything, but I'm very approachable. So,
I think you displayed that. You're willing to reason and talk. And I mean, you took some negative phone calls and you took some positive phone calls.
Yeah.
So
and that's okay. That's what I expected.
You expected that, right? Yeah. So, again, I appreciate you guys for watching. I appreciate you trying to clear some things up. And like I told my daughter, I did this for several reasons. When you attach Christianity to something in the county I live in, I do a live call-in show, and I ask people like this, atheists, skeptics, whoever, if you disagree with the things that I've talked about tonight about the Bible, I'm not going to debate people about politics. I showed tonight clearly. This is why I do truth with proof. I don't do about all the things that the government, Washington, D.C. Is worried about. So, again, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Good meeting you, and I wish the best for you, and you guys have a safe week, all right? So.